Hello, I'm John from Bang Olufsen in Manchester, and today I've got a BeoLab 19 wireless subwoofer to set up. Now, setting up subs is one of my favourite things in the world to do. A little bit sad, yes, but I would like you to come on this little journey with me. Let's go. Now, I think Bang & Olufsen pulled out all the stops when it came to designing this, because as far as subwoofers go, I think it's absolutely gorgeous. Now, the entire cabinet is made from aluminium, which makes it very, very strong, and it's shaped to be very strong as well as aesthetically pleasing, and it's very dead to vibration. So in the front of the subwoofer there's this 8-inch bass unit that's powered by its own 160 watt Class D digital amplifier. But that's not all, because in the rear of the cabinet there's another 8-inch bass unit with another 160 watt Class D digital amplifier. Now, each of the 8-inch bass drivers has its own sealed enclosure, and they are both balanced with each other to eliminate vibrations from the cabinet. So all of the energy from the twin drive units is turned into sound rather than vibrations. So we'll quickly have a look at the connection panel. We've got standard issue power. Power link is for connection to a Bang & Olufsen TV or audio system if you're using cabled. It's also got wireless power link with the Wiser technology. So if you've got a Wiser compliant TV like the BeoVision Avant and BeoVision 11, we can use a wireless connection. You've got a left or a right RCA input, so this isn't exclusive to Bang & Olufsen products. So if you've got a normal AVR, an AV receiver with surround sound with a subwoofer pre-out, you can use these connections to a normal home cinema system. And then we've got a service plug for software updates. And on to the actual controls. So first of all, we have the gain. That's the actual volume, if you like, of the subwoofer. Now, a good place to start is 0, especially if you're connecting it to a B&O TV or an AVR. That's a good starting point, and then you can make final adjustments on the actual settings of the equipment you've got it connected to. And you've got the low pass filter. So this is the level at which the subwoofer kicks in, if you like. So if your main speakers play down to about 60 Hertz, you can tailor the sub to only pick up where the speakers leave off. So this will play the lower frequencies from 60 Hertz down to just over 20 Hertz. But because we're connected to a Bang & Olufsen TV, we want to turn the low pass filter off, because the TV will take care of the bass management. This also applies with an AV receiver, especially if you're using a microphone setup one, because the amplifier itself will take care of the bass management, so you want this to be switched off. Now, phase, you've got 0 or 180 degrees. So that's a bit more complex. That's when you're getting into things called standing waves, where you can get peaks and troughs in a room. If the drive units from the subwoofer are in phase with your main speakers, which is 0, they're both pushing and pulling at the same time. So this can cause an effect where they cancel each other out, in which case we would have 180 degrees. It's trial and error, and the one that gives you the strongest performance is the correct one, but generally, as a rule of thumb, start with 0. We have our usual position switch, free space, wall and corner, depending on where the subwoofer is sitting in relation to the boundary walls. And then we have wired, so if we're using the power link socket or the RCA sockets, and in which case you would also select which socket you've used, the left, right, or some amplifiers have a left and right subwoofer output. But today we're going to be using wireless because we're connecting to a BeoVision Avant. And then the reset for factory reset on the wireless. And that's it. So now I've got it in place with the mains connection in with the BeoVision Avant 75 and 4 BeoLab 18s. So see, because we've selected wireless, the green status LED is flashing because it's ready for pairing. So now we're ready. So we just go to menu, setup, sound, and first we need to connect the subwoofer to the TV. So we go to speaker connections, and here we've got the 4 BeoLab 18s that are already set up. So I just press red to rescan for wireless speakers. So now we can see we have the 4 BeoLab 18s that were already set up, and now BeoLab 19 has been added to the list. Right, so now we've added the subwoofer to the wireless connections, we need to go back into speaker groups. So here we can assign different roles to each speaker and call up these groups with a remote control for different types of listening. So I've got the TV by itself, 5.1 surround sound for movies, and I've got a couple of music settings for stereo. So I only want the subwoofer with 5.1 surround. So first we need to assign a role. So you can see here I've got the Avant speakers all set to center, and then I've got left, right, front and surround speakers on the BeoLab 18s, and the BeoLab 19 I've assigned to subwoofer. So here you can see all the different jobs that we can assign to speakers. We just want plain old subwoofer, and then save. So then it's important to set a distance. So this is the distance from your ears at your listening position to each of the speakers, and set those accordingly. And then speaker level. Now you can use a microphone setup. I tend to use a decibel meter and sit in the listening position, do it manually. So this is important, so all of the speakers are at the same perceived volume at your listening position. So you can see each one, if I turn it up, each one plays a test tone. So each one should be the same volume from your listening position. So I tend to play a music track that I'm very familiar with that has particular deep bass, and that's how I set the subwoofer level, because I know what it should sound like, and it takes a little bit of trial and error to get it to your taste and to get it right. But I've spent a bit of time doing it, and I've set the levels up. See, it's often too tempting to turn subwoofers up too high. I often see setups where the subwoofer is far too high and it draws attention to itself. The bass should sound like it's coming from the main speakers and it's hard to locate. It should be deep and powerful without being overpowering. So that's setting up a subwoofer, isn't it, mate? It does take a bit of knowledge and a bit of experience to do it correctly. As I said before, it's far too tempting to just turn a subwoofer up too high so it draws attention to itself, and that can get quite fatiguing to listen to. But if you do it right, there's a twofold effect. Yes, you're going to get deeper, more powerful, low frequency effects from particularly movies, but it also takes some of the work away from the main speakers, because they don't have to recreate that deep bass that they're not designed for. So that opens them up to do what they were designed for, which is more of the mid-range and treble frequencies. So you get an overall better, cleaner, more controlled sound. If you've got any questions, of course, leave a question down below in the comments, and I'll try and get back to you. You'll see me in the next video, and him.